All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Jessica. I'm a physical therapist at TS Therapy, and I'm here today to answer all of your physical therapy related questions. Hi. Okay, so before we get started, just a little bit about me. I graduated from Texas Women's University in 2011. When I started my career, When I started my career, I actually told my family I was just going to do traveling therapy for 1 year and wanted to see the country. And now 9 years later, I still haven't made it home quite yet. But because I did travel therapy, I've had the opportunity to work in multiple settings, hospital, clinics, schools, homes, sometimes with adults, sometimes with kids. And then in 2018, when I moved to San Diego, I was fortunate enough to find TES Therapy. And I've been loving it. So let's go ahead and get started with these questions. All right. So the first question is, what is pediatric physical therapy? So the goal of a pediatric physical therapist is to help each child reach their maximum potential. That way they can actively participate in their home, in their school, and out in the community. So whenever you think of traditional PT, you might think someone who hurt their shoulder or had to go get a knee surgery and then went to rehab so that they could get better and go back to work. But lucky for us, as pediatric physical therapists, the work of every child is play. So we get to use our expertise in movement, motor development, and body functions to help our kids be able to play to their full potential. And then a large part of what we do is also collaborating with families and working as a team to figure out what's important to them, what goals are meaningful for them, how to adapt toys for play, how to work positioning and exercises into daily routines to strengthen and stretch muscles, what equipment can be used to progress development, how to access community resources, and then also how to smooth the transition from childhood to school and into adulthood. Okay, so then the next question, what is your favorite part about becoming a physical therapist? So I was actually lucky enough to know that I wanted to be a PT since I was in high school. Part of that's because I come from a long line of optimists in my family. Thank you, Granny. So I was really excited to hear about a career that was devoted to helping people achieve their goals and improve their quality of life. I actually really like pointing out the small victories because a lot of times we're guilty, myself included, of just looking at like the big overarching goal and forget to look at all the little building blocks that it takes to get there. So an example of this could be if I have a kiddo who's learning to walk and the family is getting discouraged because it's not happening at the time that they were expecting it to. I get to come in and point out the things that maybe the family didn't notice. Like, oh, did you see how he reached outside of his base of support to grab that toy? That means that his dynamic balance is improving, his trunk is getting stronger, he's able to weight shift and keep his legs stable when bearing more weight, which are all important milestones and necessary components of walking. So I really enjoy that part about getting to stay positive and build people up so that way they realize their goals are achievable if we just take it one step at a time. All right, so next question. Can you explain the difference between OT and PT? So if any of my OT friends are listening, you can definitely type in and chime in. This is actually a question we get asked a lot because there's quite a bit of overlap and a lot of similarities between our two professions. But one answer could be that in general, PTs work on a client's ability to move their body so that they can navigate through their environment. Examples of this is walking or crawling across a living room or climbing up a slide, jumping across the playground, or running during sports. We tend to focus more on helping kids be as mobile as possible while taking into account the quality of their movement, their joint alignment, what their posture looks like, and then their ability to stay safe. So on the other hand, occupational therapists tend to focus on a child's ability to participate in daily self-care or academic tasks. So examples of this could be eating, dressing, paying attention in class, handwriting, using scissors, and playing age-appropriate games. OTs are trained to take into account the quality of the child's participation, and they also consider how the child is organizing and interpreting sensory information from their environment. So that might be why you hear that a child should be referred to OT if they have food aversions, intolerances to certain textures, or sensitivity to sounds. So hope that answers a little bit, gives a clarification. Okay, next question. What are your most rewarding experiences with a patient? So I feel like I get to experience little miracles all the time. So this one's actually really hard for me to pinpoint a few. I think one of the advantages therapists have over other careers in healthcare is the amount of time that we get to spend with our clients. So in early intervention, a lot of times we get to go into a client's home for an hour a week, which is a lot of time that you spend with somebody in their own environment. So you really become part of the family. I feel like you know their dogs, you play with brothers and sisters, you look through family albums. So whenever you witness one of your kids crawl for the first time, which I've actually been there to see the very first time a kiddo has crawled, or see them take their first steps in a gait trainer, those moments become especially meaningful because you understand just how much they impact the family as a whole. All right. Next question. How do you treat patients with progressive or degenerative diseases? Okay, so for kids with these types of diseases, you need to change your focus as a therapist and ask yourself, how can we slow the rate of regression? How can we prevent impairments from worsening? How can we modify the activity so that the child and family can still participate in things that are important for them? I also think it's really essential to help the families understand what to expect with the disease progression so that way they can plan ahead. And then like I mentioned earlier, it's important to keep in mind that the work of every child is play. So we need to be an advocate for these children. That way they have the resources that they need to be able to play and be able to maintain a good quality of life. So one thing that I've realized over my years of practice is how resilient and resourceful kids can be. So even if they have significant challenges ahead, kids can tend to find a way to smile and remind us of the simple joys in life. So it's just amazing to be able to be a part of that. Okay, next question. How are physical therapy practices adapting to a COVID-19 world? Okay, so to be honest, my first thought whenever I realized PT was transitioning to more of a teletherapy platform, I was a little tentative, like, oh no, how am I going to keep a 2-year-old entertained on a video for an hour? But I've actually been really pleasantly surprised. Part of the reason that teletherapy's worked better than I could have expected is because of the amazing families that I work with, that they're always just willing to try all of the things that I'm asking them to do. There have also been really incredible resources that have come out of all this. So people posting videos of very specific exercises, pictures of therapeutic activities that I can share with families, and interactive teletherapy games that we can play. So while I do believe that handling skills are important as a therapist, we have been challenged to use our words to explain what we're looking for and how we can adapt the environment to achieve what we want. So using more of this parent coaching model, we've actually been able to see some great progress with our kids, and in some cases, even more successful outcomes because the parent has learned how to incorporate these activities or exercises into their daily routines, and now they're doing it on a consistent basis versus just once a week in therapy. Now we are starting to transition back to in-person services. It looks a little different with the mask and the face shield. I tell some of my kiddos, like, oh, Miss Jessica turned into an astronaut while you were gone, while she was gone. So that's a little bit different, but the kids have been, taking it really well, and we're taking the skills that we learned in teletherapy to be more well-rounded whenever we're in person. Okay, so next one, what are good balance games for kids? So I think more than ever, it's important to use what you already have in your homes to play games with. So you'd be surprised what you could do with everyday household objects. For example, you can take pillows or couch cushions and throw them on the floor, and then help your kids use their imagination, saying the floor's hot lava, you gotta jump, from rock to rock so that you don't get into the lava. Or another fun balance tool is using a rolled up towel, and then it can be a balance beam so your child can walk the tightrope going forwards, backwards, sideways. Something that's a little bit more challenging is you can roll up a yoga mat and then put a laundry basket on top of that, and voila, you have a wobble board. So you can just have your kids stand in the middle of the basket and shift their weight side to side while you're throwing a ball with them, or if that's too challenging, you have them sit and shift their weight side to side. So there's actually a lot that you can do just with what you already have. Okay, next question. How do you fix W sitting? Okay, so a little background. I tried to get a picture of it there, but it's sort of hard to see. So W sitting is when a kid positions themselves on the floor with their bottom between their legs, their knees bent, and then their legs rotated away from their body. So this position can be a part of normal development. Some kids will just go in and out of this position naturally, but it can become problematic if your child spends a prolonged amount of time in this position. The reason kids like to W sit is because the wider base of support makes it easier for them to balance when they're playing with their toys. And then this position could be harmful though, because they can't really rotate their trunk when their legs are positioned this way or shift their weight. So that will limit their ability to use their balance reactions or be able to twist and cross midline. It can also lead to tightness in the hips and legs, which could lead to a pigeon-toed kind of walking. So in order to prevent W sitting, you need to encourage your child to use alternative sitting positions. So that's cool, yay! Alternative sitting positions. So some other seated positions are crisscross applesauce, side sitting, long sitting with their legs straight out in front of them, or sitting on a bench with their feet flat on the floor. One trick that I like to use is if you come behind a kid that's W sitting, just tickle the bottom of their feet and they'll bring their legs straight out in front of them. And then it's probably not realistic to ask parents to catch their kid every time they're W sitting. So something else that we can focus on is core exercises, because W sitting can actually be a sign of core weakness. So that actually rolls me into my next question. What are good core exercises? Okay, so one of my favorites is wheelbarrow walking. You can either hold your kids' hips, knees, or ankles. Closer to the body is easier. Ankles would be the hardest. And then they can take steps forwards or backwards with their hands. A fun way to keep them motivated to wheelbarrow walk is if you have a puzzle and you put all the pieces all over the floor and then they have to go and retrieve all the pieces. And it's actually a good workout for the parent too. So another core activity is having your child lay on their back and then ask them to squeeze a toy between their feet. And once they get a good hold of that toy, they can activate their core by slowly lowering it down onto a bowl that's on the floor, or even up and over their head into a bowl above their head. So that's a fun one. And then for babies, the best way to start working on core strength is to allow for lots of tummy time throughout the day. So this gives them the opportunity to lift their arms and legs up off the floor, weight bear on their hands, and reach for toys, which all require core work. So I hope you got some ideas there. Okay, next question. What are your favorite gross motor activities for kids? Okay, so my go-to is animal walks. If you haven't heard of that one, I just find that this game is an easy way to get kids engaged and address multiple areas of development. So an example would be showing a picture of an animal and asking, what animal do you see? What color is the animal? What sound does the animal make? And then once they answer all these questions, they get to pretend to be the animal. So for a frog, we can squat low and then jump up high into the air. For a flamingo, we can stand on one foot. For a bear, we can walk on all fours and roar. So by the end of the game, you've worked not only on strength, but also endurance, motor planning, balance, and coordination. So that's one of my favorites to get all those areas. Okay, next question. And this is actually the last question, unless you guys have more, but last question here is, can you share activities to help kids with body awareness? So I think especially in the teletherapy world, movement songs on YouTube have been really useful for teaching body awareness. You want to look for songs that name body parts, like the classic head, shoulder, knees, toes. So whenever you play that song or sing that song, you can either help your child with the hand-over-hand assistance to point to their body parts, or model it on yourself. There's lots of great YouTube videos out there. I know I use Kaboomers a lot, and they ask kids to perform certain actions like clap your hands, stomp your feet, blink your eyes. And then also something to consider before having child play games that require coordination is to have them perform heavy work. So examples of heavy work are pushing a laundry basket across the living room, playing tug of war with a blanket or a towel, or lifting couch cushions and putting them back up onto the couch from the floor. So the idea here is that the heavy work activities will give input to all their muscles and joints so that they can have a better understanding of how their arms, legs, and trunk moves, and then they'll be able to move in a more coordinated manner. So I don't think that I got any questions in, unless anybody has some last minute ones, but that was fun. Thank you everybody for joining today, and I hope you learned something, and I enjoyed getting to share my PT knowledge with you guys. Bye. Thank you.